Our emotions have so much influence on what we do or don't do in our lives. And when it comes to the things we don't do, the emotion that really has the biggest say on that is this emotion of fear. All right? And as a result of that, it's a really important thing to understand this emotion, how it's impacting us, how it's impacting our day-to-day life, how it's impacting us with respect to having fun, how it's impacting us in respect to love and relationships, and everything else. Because that's really the purpose of fear, is to keep us from doing something. All right, so the body has a fear of death, and that keeps us from jumping off a cliff. That's the job of fear. Now, so we have to work with this. This thing called fear, this emotion, has a purpose. It's a beautiful purpose. It's a necessary emotion. But we have to understand it, and we have to use it in the right way. Which means we have to use it to keep ourselves from doing the thing that we need to not do. But what so often happens with fear is that fear uses us to not do the things that maybe we should do. And that's when fear becomes a problem. All right? So the goal of this video is to explain this fear mechanism so you can understand it, you can start rationalizing it, you can start working with it, so that this emotion of fear is something that dramatically benefits your life instead of being something that ruins your life. All right? Okay, so Frank Herbert in Dune has told us through the Bene Gesserit witches that fear is the mind killer. Okay, so here's this idea. Fear is the mind killer. It can be. If we go into a state of panic and freeze and blind fright, basically where our faculties aren't working and fear has surmounted everything, yes, it's the mind killer, and at that point things are all over. All right? And that's not truly fear, though. That's not fear in the context of something we can really work with. That's fear that has a basis in psychosis. And what that means is there's memories in the unconsciousness that are so powerful. It's triggering this feeling of great freezing, freaking out, helpless fear. Okay? And that's coming because of the trauma in the unconsciousness, okay? The painful memories, etc. in the unconsciousness. That's not fear we can really work with. That fear has to be healed. All right? The fear that we can work with is what we're mostly going to talk about. But that blind fear that totally overtakes a person, that has to be healed. That has to be healed by working on the trauma, working on the unconsciousness. And it's also healed by having a nice life. All right? Because when we have a nice life, we have experiences that teach the unconsciousness that things are okay down here. You're going to be okay. It teaches the unconsciousness the very opposite of the painful, negative, traumatic things that it learned that caused the person to have such a fear response, okay? So if you find yourself, suffering from anxiety-type disorders, those paralyzing fear-type disorders, yes, life can take care of that, can help you with that, but it takes a very long time. You need some kind of therapy to work through those fears, okay? And always deep, deep meditation is a therapy. So in that state, if fear can grip you like that, you can't really work with it. You can't fight it on that level. The things I'm going to talk about on this video, though, can help you work in your life and deal with more and get closer to the edge of that paralyzing fear without going off the edge. So then you can make progress. This video will still help people who have this paralyzing type fear. Okay? Because when this video, we're going to understand fear. We're going to understand the monster. We're going to understand what it's good for. We're going to understand how we need to use it so it benefits us. And if you have anxiety problems, fear problems, yes, that will benefit you a lot too. But realize you might need to do more. But it's also very important to do what I talk about in this class, because in order for our unconsciousness to overcome fear, we have to have beneficial events that are stronger than those traumatic events. And if we're letting fear screw up our lives, we're not going to have those events. Okay? So if we get to managing our fears so that we can start having productive events and get some therapy, then yes, we can work through all these fears and move towards a better life. Because in that state, fear really is the mind killer. It destroys what you need, what you want, what you love, etc. Okay? All right, so we're going to talk about now really manageable fear. All right? Meaning using fear to your benefit by understanding where it has to be directed. So let's think about fear on the most base level. The universal fear that everyone has is the fear of death. It's something instilled in the body. If you have a body, that fear is with you. And this fear is there because it keeps you from dying. It keeps you vigilant. When you get to the edge of the cliff, you start paying attention, right? When you're far from the cliff, you're not paying attention to the soil, the loose rocks, something you might trip over, right? But when you're on the edge of the cliff, all of a sudden you're paying attention. And that fear makes you aware. And that's a beautiful thing about fear. It makes you aware. Makes you pay attention. And why? To keep you safe from falling off the edge of the cliff. Now what happens if you fall off the edge of the cliff and die? What happens is your entire world comes to an end. Fear is the feeling that keeps us from wanting our entire world ending, which means death. Because when death happens, the world ends. Our entire world ends. So as we go through our lives, we're going to have things come into our life. We're going to encounter things in our life that become a critical, important, cherished part of our lives. Okay? And when we have these things, or when we find these things that are a critical part of our lives, or we hope and wish that they're a critical, important, foundational part of our life, part of our true world, then there's a fear of losing that. Okay? Because fear on a healthy level is the emotion of losing your world through death or losing a part of your critical world. Okay? That's a healthy fear. Because the same way, the fear of death, when you get to the edge of the cliff, you just naturally start paying attention. When there's something that's critical in your life, that you give great importance to in your life, the fear doesn't paralyze you, doesn't make you frigid, doesn't make you act in ways that screw things up. All it does is it serves to make you aware, to pay attention to this part of your life, this part of your world that you do not want to see lost, that you do not want to lose. So the same way that when you get to the edge of the cliff and there's a natural fear in the body that makes you just aware of where you're at. It's not like you get to the edge of the cliff and you start panicking and freaking out and thinking strange things. No, if you do that, you have a fear of heights because something in your unconsciousness that needs to be healed. Okay? But failing that, if you don't have that, it just makes you aware. It's not a horrible feeling. So the purpose of fear is to make us hyper aware, to make us aware of things that we could screw up on. So we have something in our life and it's important to us. We have a job that's a fulcrum of our life, a fulcrum of what we want to do with our lives and where we want to get to. So we pay attention. You know, we make sure we don't screw that job up. We make sure we don't do something stupid and trip off the cliff of losing that job. Okay? This is the healthy use of fear. Okay? A relationship. So say we have a person in our life and they're a critical part of our world. We make them a priority part of our world. Then the fear is not, again, a paralyzing fear. Oh, they're going to leave me and this and that. If that kind of stuff's happening, again, you have an unconscious trauma that needs to be resolved. You need some healing. But it's a fear that simply makes a person aware of the situation. Makes you aware of the person and the situation. So you keep the situation safe. You don't do anything stupid to ruin this good situation, the critical situation. You're aware of the person, so you keep them safe, you know. You're aware of the person so you don't do stupid things that hurt them, okay? Because healthy fears, you don't want a part of your world to disappear, to be lost, okay? And if you hurt someone, a part of your world that's important to you will be lost. So again, it's a natural fear. It's not a shivering, quaking in your boots type fear. It's just a fear that gives this natural, healthy vigilance that I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose this, so I'm going to pay attention. I'm paying attention to how, so I won't hurt this person. I'm paying attention to make this person's in a good state. Okay? The same way at work, we're paying attention. And this is a natural, relaxing fear. It's not a negative, paralyzing thing. Okay? Now, I hope everyone understands that. That's simply healthy fear. That's just the healthy mechanism of fear. This awareness that I could fall off the cliff and die. Therefore, my awareness is paying attention to what can cause this. This awareness that this critical part of my life that is essential to my well-being, and I've made it a foundation of my life. It could, it could fall off the cliff. So I have to pay attention, be vigilant, take care of it, observe it, be there for it, not screw it up, not push it off the edge of the cliff on accident or on purpose. Okay? And then fear has fulfilled its purpose, okay, which is to keep something in your world that matters. Okay? Now in relationships, this is a really interesting dynamic. Relationships make everything more interesting because you always have two people having an array of emotions, right? So in relationships, you have two people having fears. And this is where I'm going to sort of explain how fear gets in the way. Okay? The healthy use of fear is when we make something a priority of our lives, and then we have a fear of losing it, so we pay attention so that we don't ever do anything that would lose it, and we only do things that ensure it'll survive. Okay? Now, what often happens is that people have this thing called a fear of getting hurt. Okay? Now, that's not a healthy fear. Okay? A fear of getting hurt is not healthy. The fear of losing something critical, that's healthy. There's a huge difference between these two things. Okay? You might think it's the same thing, but it's not. Losing something that truly matters to your world. Like, let's think of going to the edge of the cliff. Okay? We go to the edge of the cliff, and we have a fear. And the fear is, my world will end if I fall off this cliff. But you know what? If you were to fall off that cliff, it wouldn't hurt at all. There is no pain in falling off a cliff. I had the great privilege and joy to fall 120 feet off a cliff. And I was suspended by a rope with about 5 feet to go before the ground. So if that rope had been 5 feet longer, 5.5 feet longer, it would have been pulp time for me. As it was, I pulped out my elbow at 60 feet against a rock. I hit my feet, my wrists against all kinds of little small ledges as I was tumbling down the face of this cliff. And as I was falling, I had time to think, I'm going to have to check my brain when I get to the bottom of this cliff to make sure I can still do astrology. Okay? And then I got to the end of the rope of a 120-foot climb. And for a moment, I had a moment to think, can I still think? And my brain said, yes, your brain is still functioning. And then, and only then, and again, I'd been hitting little lips and little rocks coming down off the cliff from about 20 feet onward, with the biggest impact being at 60 feet into a big boulder. And I got to the end of that rope, and I had time to think all that, and then the pain came. And then from every part of my body, pain came shooting into my heart. And I thought, if I had just died now, it would have been an absolutely painless death. So you see, there is no pain of falling off the cliff and dying, but there is the loss of your entire world. That's the true fear. That's the healthy fear. Pain, the fear of being hurt, is not a healthy fear. It is never a healthy fear. The fear of losing something critical, that is healthy. So observe your mind. Are you paying attention to what you have, and are you scared of losing that thing? Or are you scared of being hurt? If you're scared of being hurt, you got work to do. You have to work that out. That means your unconsciousness, you've got some trauma there that's creating you to have this fear of being hurt. And that needs to be healed. That needs to be resolved. Because there's nothing wrong with being hurt. Okay? You're going to get hurt. This is Earth. Okay? Things you do hurt you. Look in a basic primitive society where people are hungry and there's a fruit tree. And now they're going to climb the fruit tree and get their food so they can survive. Well, you know, when they're climbing that tree, they're going to get poked. They're going to get scratched by the bark. You know, they're going to reach their arm between some branches and get caught and get their wrists scratched. If they're picking grapefruit, they got 2-inch thorns jabbing into their arms. But it's okay. Because that's normal to get hurt as you go through life to get what you need. Pain is part of it. All right? The fear of being hurt stops us from doing what maybe we need to do. That's the problem. Oh, I'm scared I'm going to be hurt, so I'm not going to climb that tree and get the fruit. Instead, I'm going to stay down here on the ground and die. That's the fear of being hurt. Okay? The fear of losing this tree. Gosh, if this tree, you know, burns down, I'm a big, important part of my world. The part of the world that nourishes me and feeds me is gone forever. So I'm not going to smoke cigarettes laying under this tree in case I fall asleep and start a forest fire. Okay? It makes you pay attention to what would destroy that part of your world. That's the healthy fear. Okay? So, the fear of getting hurt keeps you from doing something that maybe you should do. The fear of losing something important in your world makes you aware of that thing, makes you pay attention so that you do what's required to take care of it. And now fear is a beautiful, beautiful, useful thing. Okay? But when you're fear of getting hurt, you don't do what you need to. Fear of being hurt, that's also the mind killer. Fear of being hurt kills the heart, kills our minds, kills our life. Okay? It's not a healthy fear. All right? Now, there's something that's, you know, in the direction of fear, but a very different thing. And that's, I don't want to. Okay? There's fear, and there's, I don't want to. Those are very different things. Fear is, I don't want to lose this because it's a critical part of my life. I don't want to is, you know, I don't want chocolate ice cream. I want vanilla. And someone brings you chocolate ice cream, you're like, oh, I don't want chocolate ice cream. Big deal. You know, it's not a big deal. And nobody wants to get hurt. So when I climb the tree to get some fruits, and it's a grapefruit tree with big spikes, I don't want to get stuck in my forearms with 2-inch spikes, you know? But it doesn't really matter because I want the grapefruit. So if I get poked with some spikes, I'm still going to climb the tree and come down with a bunch of grapefruit. But I don't want to get the thorn stuck in me. But, you know, no big deal. Okay? So nobody wants to get hurt as we go down the journey of life. Nobody wants to get hurt when they're trying to build something in their life. Nobody wants to get hurt building a relationship with someone. But, you know, you're gonna. And it doesn't matter. Because no one wants to. The fear part should be based on the importance you give something, how much this thing matters to you. If it critically matters, the fear is, I don't want to lose this. And the sad part is, the fear of getting hurt can override the fear of, this is an important thing in my life that I don't want to see disappear from my world. Okay? What is suicide? You know? Suicide is when there's pain, and a person doesn't want any more pain, so they end their world. All right? Because they don't want to be hurt anymore. And so they end the world. We do countless suicide missions in life. You know? We don't want to be hurt, and so we let a part of our world that is really good end. The same way that someone who's so full of pain, some kind of pain, whether it's a depressive pain or whatever, that they don't want to have any more pain. They don't want to hurt anymore, so they end the whole world. Okay? It's the same thing on a minor level, but we do this. We constantly make these little suicide missions when we are scared of getting hurt. I'm scared of being hurt, so I'm suiciding this part of my world that could be good, that could be important. Okay? And I've seen people say this in all kinds of ways. I've seen people say, no, I'd be scared to predict that in astrology because, I might, hurt the person or make a mistake. Maybe, and yes, you will. Anything you try to predict as an astrologer, you're going to make a mistake on. But big deal. You can still create a world of you doing that thing with astrology and help a lot of people. But yeah, some people you won't help. Some people you hurt. Sometimes you'll feel stupid because you didn't do it right, and you'll feel hurt that you did something wrong. Because whatever our job is, we're going to make mistakes. We're fallible beings. But it's the same idea. Are we going to let the fear of being hurt get in the way of true fear, which is realizing the importance of something? When people suicide, that's what they do. The desire not to be hurt, the desire not to hurt anymore, looms so large in their mind, it becomes more important than their whole world. Okay? It's really not, but it feels like it is. It seems like it is, but it's really not. Okay? In the same way, in our life, with the parts of our lives, this is an important thing, this is an important thing. The fear of being hurt can make us not realize and see how obviously important that thing is to ourselves. So if you find yourself having a fear of being hurt in anything, okay, I want to be an actor. I have a fear of being hurt and humiliated, because what if people laugh at me? I want to do stand-up comedy, but I have a fear of being laughed at. No. Look at that fear. Take that fear of being hurt, humiliated, let down, whatever the fear is, and turn it into, find the fear of, this is a critical thing. This matters to me. And therefore, I don't want to lose it. And so I'm going to make sure I don't lose it by paying attention. Because the scariest thing is not having that thing. Okay? That's healthy fear. Realize that the scariest thing is not being the stand-up comedian. The life you're going to live not being the actor, that's the scariest thing. The life you're going to live without that job. The life you're going to live without that person, that's the fucking thing to get scary about. Not, I might get hurt. Okay, because you're going to get hurt. It's a given. All right? So we want to turn the fear, the negative fears, the I'm not going to get hurt, I'm scared of getting hurt, into I'm scared of losing something that really fucking matters to me. And if it doesn't really matter to you, you won't care. You won't be vigilant. You won't pay attention. You're not supposed to, because it's not part of your life. It doesn't matter. It's not a foundation, a cornerstone, a critical part of your life. But the funny thing is, the fear of being hurt, the mind-killing fear of the traumatized unconsciousness, can make us blind to the critical, important things sometimes. And we want to make sure that if we don't have the fear of losing something, that's because it's really not all that important in our lives. Okay? And that's fine. But it's a shame when something that is a cornerstone of our life is overshadowed by the fear that we carry. The mind-killing fear, the fear of being hurt. Okay? And turn that fear of being hurt into, I don't want to be hurt. Okay? And what do I really want? And make that the priority, and be scared of losing or never getting what you really want and need. And be okay with being hurt. Try not to get hurt. Do what's sensible to not get hurt. Nobody wants to get hurt. But don't let getting hurt, let the fear make the decision on that. Because that's imbalance. That gets you stuck. That wastes your years. Okay? And it's so interesting to see how fear works. I see people who are scared of being alone stay with the wrong people. You know? They have a critical idea that I want to have this kind of relationship, a family life, etc., etc., etc. That's what's critically important to them. But then they're with someone who's never going to give that to them. You know, someone who's never going to marry them, never going to have kids with them, etc. They're living in separate apartments. And they stay with them because they're scared of not being with that person. They're scared of being alone. And that fear keeps them from going and building what matters in their lives. Because they're not building it with that person. And the person's made it clear they're never going to build it with them. Yet, they're scared of being alone. They're scared they're not finding anyone else, so they stay there. And that fear is irrational. There's 6 billion more plus people in the world. There's always someone to meet. There's always someone to connect to. So focus on the critical thing. What they need to be scared of is not building that critical part of their lives and watching their years go by as they're staying with someone who's never going to give it. Watching their years go by as they're not building that part of their lives. That's what they need to be scared of. And they need to start paying attention to, am I building that critical part of my life? Oh no, I'm not. 6 months have gone by and I'm no closer. This is scary. That's healthy fear. Okay? So direct the fear towards the things that truly matter, that are truly important in your life. Not the fear of being hurt. Not the fear of being alone, etc., etc. The fear of being alone is just another fear of being hurt. Okay? And in relationships, when you have a relationship, fear is a critical thing that can make the relationship last, or it can end it. Okay? Or it can make a relationship start and flourish and continue and last, or it can relationship not even get to first base. Okay? And that is these two fears, the healthy fear and the unhealthy fear. If we have two people, and they both see the relationship in each other as a critical, important part of their lives, as a foundation of their lives, and seeing that and knowing that, they're scared of losing that part of their life. So they pay attention to each other. They're watching the other person. They're making sure they don't hurt the other person. They're being considerate to that other person. They're caring about that other person. Fear is there to do that in a relationship. And so if two people are doing that to each other, their relationship is going to flourish. Their relationship is last. So that same force that when you get to the edge of the cliff, you just naturally start paying attention to anything that can make you fall off the cliff, you bring that into your relationship. Two people bring that in. And they just naturally start paying attention to, this would hurt that person. If this person gets hurt, I lose them. This would hurt their relationship. If the relationship gets hurt, I'll lose it. And they start taking care of that. It's in a very natural way, a fear-motivated way. That I don't want to lose this cornerstone. Okay? That's the relationship that's going to last. All right? If you have a relationship where two people come in and they're scared of being hurt, if that relationship even starts on it maybe some night, it probably would take a drunken night to get them to first base. How's it going to survive? If each person is not scared of losing the relationship, losing that person, but they're actually scared of being hurt, then the relationship doesn't work. Okay? So for a relationship to work, people simply have to have the healthy fear that gives the vigilance, that allows one to naturally pay attention, not in a fearful, neurotic, stressed out way, but just in a, I'm observing. I'm paying attention to what's on the edge of the cliff. I'm paying attention to the things that can cause us to fall off the edge of the cliff. I'm paying attention to the thing that can have my relationship fall off the edge of the cliff. So that it doesn't happen. Okay? That's healthy fear. That's the fear that's required to have a healthy relationship. That's the fear to keep you alive when you're on the edge of a cliff. That's the fear that keeps you alive when you're driving in stressful conditions or down a really windy road with no guardrail, right? You don't start panicking in the car. You just pay more attention. You know? You stop listening to that novel, whatever. You simply start naturally being more aware. The purpose of fear is to keep us aware so we don't lose a part of our world, or in the case of death, our entire world. Turn your scary fear into awareness fear. You're aware of that part of your world. You're aware of that person, that job, that cliff, whatever. And then fear is a beautiful thing, because through that awareness is love. Seriously, awareness gives love. Through that awareness, you're paying attention. You're aware of a person. You're observing a person. You're cultivating love. When you're on the edge of the cliff, when you're aware, you notice the beauty more. You know, there's a greater feeling of love. All of our emotions have just one goal, and that's to give us an experience of love. Even fear has this goal of giving us an experience of love that comes from this awareness. Okay? Being aware of how important it is. Gosh, this is so important to me. I love this job. I love this person. I love this life. Whatever. All emotions have this one purpose, giving us an experience of love. If fear is not giving you an experience of love, then you need to work on it. Find what it is that you want to build. The critical people and things that you want to build. And realize that losing those is a huge deficit, and that you have to pay attention to those things so that you don't lose them. And in that awareness of those things, you will have the experience of love. Okay? This is how I think we need to handle fear. To work with fear in a rational, healthy way. And if you can't do this, it's simply because you have irrational fears. You have trauma in your unconsciousness that can overwhelm the healthy functioning of your other parts. This is very common. Don't feel bad if that's the case. You know, many people, many of us, we've had trauma to such a degree that we can fall into a state of helplessness where the fear takes over and there's nothing we can do. Okay? Well, then we need therapy. We have to heal from that. But we want to do these things. We want to practice healthy fear too. Practicing this healthy experience of fear that gives the awareness. That will anchor us. That'll keep us from slipping into that paralyzing fear, the panic and the anxiety. And, very importantly, it'll help you have the meaningful, deep experiences that allow your unconscious to go, it's not all a scary, disaster down here. There is good stuff. You don't have to be scared. But if we approach life with fear, usually everything just goes wrong. If we approach things with the fear of being hurt, we do get hurt. And then our unconscious says, I told you so. That's the trouble with the unconscious. It approaches this thing from the wrong angle, and it proves itself correct every time. So you cannot let the fear of being hurt be the motivator. That includes the fear of being alone. All right? The only healthy motivation is the fear of losing something critical. Okay? And therefore paying attention in a healthy, natural way, not a psychotic, freaking out, helpless way, but in a concerned, aware, practical, and purposeful way, taking care of that part of your world. Okay? All right, so I hope that's helpful and gives everyone a little education on this really beautiful emotion of fear, and helps you turn fear into awareness, and in that awareness have a greater awareness of love in your life. Thank you.